Learn English with the News lesson, we'll review a political article involving 3 world leaders. As we read the article, you'll learn advanced English vocabulary, complex grammar and sentence structure, and correct pronunciation. This reading and listening method will help you improve your speaking and your writing. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started.
Our headline: Trump accuses Xi of conspiring against U.S. with Putin. First, let's look at this verb, to conspire. It's in the ing form, conspiring, the gerund form, because we have this preposition of, so the following verb is always in the ing form. Now notice where that syllable stress is. Conspiring, conspiring, da-da-da. So here, the syllable stress is on this syllable, and this sounds like ire. So we have these 2 sounds, ire, conspiring, conspiring. And when you conspire against someone, or in this case, a country, something, you can conspire against a company, for example, it means you secretly plan something that brings harm or hurt or something illegal. And in this case, Trump accuses Xi. So the fact that Trump accuses someone, it means that he doesn't know with certainty, but he says, you are doing this, but there's no proof because you just accuse someone. Now, you can conspire against someone or something like a country or organization. You can also use the infinitive verb after conspire. For example, my coworker is conspiring in the present continuous because my coworker is doing this now, is conspiring to steal my client. And then you might add on, I know it, I'm sure of it. So you would add that on. Maybe you say this to a friend or another coworker. So your coworker has this secret plan to steal your client. So you have this valuable client and they take it away from you, and that client becomes their client. Don't worry about taking these notes. I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's keep reading together. U.S. President Donald Trump has accused Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping of conspiring against the U.S. with Russian leader Vladimir Putin. So basically a summary of here. Notice here it says against U.S. Against the U.S. This is the grammatically correct choice because with the country, the U.S., you need the. This article is required. Now, in newspaper headlines, they often omit articles and auxiliary verbs. So you do not want to learn grammar from a headline, but you can learn vocabulary. But as soon as the article starts, so the body of the article, they will use correct grammar. So the U.S. And notice they changed accused or accuses. Headlines often use the present simple. However, again, don't learn grammar from headlines. However, here it is what verb tense? The present perfect, because Donald Trump did this. He said, Xi Jinping is conspiring against me. So it's a completed past action, but there is a result in the present. So now I need to make sure nothing bad happens. So that's why the present perfect is used and is a great choice of verb tense. Thinking of the use of the present perfect, you can say, Jennifer, I've subscribed. So that's in the contracted form in spoken English. I've subscribed. I have subscribed. I've subscribed to your channel. So it's a past action, right? You already did this yesterday, 3 years ago, but the result in the present is so now I'm notified. So now I have that check beside my name of subscribers. So now whatever the result is in the present. Now, in the negative, you could say, I haven't subscribed but you can add the word yet. I haven't subscribed yet. So this is the contracted form. And this is an ongoing timeline. So until now, the action has not happened, but you can subscribe now, 5 minutes from now, an hour from now, tomorrow, next month. So it's an ongoing timeline. So if you want to encourage people to subscribe to my channel, because it's the best way to support the channel so I can keep making these lessons for you, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. Now let's continue on. Trump's comments came as China hosted world leaders at its largest ever Victoria Day parade in Beijing on Wednesday. So here, this came as, this just means happened as. So the comments happened. He wrote the comment because it was on social media, I believe. So that would be he wrote the comment. He could say the comment if it was in a press release. And notice the pronunciation here, parade, parade, parade. And a parade is when people go down the street with music, balloons, and it's usually for a festive activity. So in this case, it was Victoria Day in China. Now, a showcase of China's military might. So the parade was a showcase. So showcase, it means they show the extent of their military might. They display it. They want people to know they have it. So when you're in a job interview, you want to showcase your accomplishments. You want to tell the interviewer all the reasons why you're amazing. You want to showcase your accomplishments. In a language exam, you want to showcase your vocabulary. You want to use your wide range of vocabulary. So showcase, display it, make it known, make it visible. Now, in this case, might is not the modal verb. It might rain. That's a modal verb. But in this case, might represents strength. So China's military might, China's military strength. Let's review these two examples with might because it is very commonly used. You might say she ran with all her might. So with all her strength, she used every ounce of energy or strength in her body to do the action. She ran with all her might to catch the bus. So that would be very common in a everyday situation, or you may hear it in books or on TV. Now, you might also say, it took all my might. So notice her might, the might is reflexive, my might, but it's starting with it took. It represents the situation. It took all my might to convince him we aren't conspiring against him. So in this case, maybe it's not physical strength, maybe it's mental strength and energy, because I had to explain to him, show him the proof, explain the real situation. By the end, I was exhausted just from all the talking. So in this case, it's not physical strength, but it is very commonly used. So if you're having a debate or a discussion, or even during a job interview, it's not physical strength. It might be emotional or mental strength.
Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson.
In a post on Truth Social, Trump wrote, "Please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin as you conspire against the United States of America." So this sounds like it was said ironically. because when you give someone your warmest regards, you do it in a sincere, positive way. But if someone's conspiring against you or your country, which represents you, you wouldn't send them your regards. Now, this is certainly a very common thing to use in written English. You can use it in spoken English as well. Please give my regards to someone. So if you're talking to your best friend, you might say, oh, please give my regards to your wife or to your husband, to your sister, to your brother. So you're letting the other person know that just you're thinking of them. It's another way of saying, oh, say hello to that person, but it's a more formal way of saying it. Now, give, you can also send someone your regards, and you can change the adjective. So you don't need to use warmest. You could say, my kind regards. This is in the superlative form. You could say my kindest, or you could just say my kind regards or another adjective. As I said, this sounds like a more formal expression. If I know someone well, I would personally say hi to your mom from me. So if I'm talking to my best friend, I would, as I'm saying bye to my best friend, I would say hi to your mom from me. Say hi to someone, your mom, from me. So the hello, which represents the regards, is the hello that's coming from someone, from me. Remember in this one, you need that preposition to, but in this case as well, say hi to your mom from me. And then my friend will go to her mom and say, oh, by the way, Jen says hello. Jen says hi. Let's keep reading. Trump previously rejected suggestions that the warming of relations between China, Russia, and other nations poses a challenge to the U.S. on the global scale. So here, the warming of relations represents the relationship between China and Russia and other nations. And warming means they're becoming friendlier. Their relationship is becoming friendlier, or they're becoming closer to one another. The warming of relations is quite a formal way of saying it. Now here, the warming of relations between China, Russia, and other nations poses a challenge. So poses represents creates a challenge, is a challenge to the US on the global scale. But notice the verb conjugation here. We're in the present simple, and we add s to subjects that are third person singular. But here we have China, Russia, and other nations with an s, so it looks like the subject is plural, right? But this isn't the subject. The subject is the warming of relations. Now, even though relations has an S on it, which again looks plural, the subject is one singular idea. The idea is the warming of relations, but it's one singular idea. So that as a subject is it. It poses a challenge. So all of this is the subject, it. So always ask yourself, what's my subject? And there are only 5 subjects in English. I, you, he, she, it, same subject, third person singular, we, they, third person plural. Let's keep reading. On social media, the US president also mentioned the massive amount of support and blood the US gave China during World War II. So, of course, blood represents soldiers who were injured or killed. So that would be blood. China's parade, remember that pronunciation, parade. The syllable stress is on the second syllable, aid. So this is pronounced phonetically, this is pronounced just as the word aid, but then add an R in front of it. raid, and this is the stressed syllable. And then because this is stressed, this part is unstressed. So it's not pa, ah, because it's unstressed. So what is the unstressed sound in English for vowels? P. So when I say pa, my mouth opens, ah, ah. But that unstressed sound, our lips really don't move. So think of it as a lazy sound for your mouth. Parade. Parade. But then you have to add the correct syllable stress. You can't say da. Parade, da. Parade. China's parade marks 80 years of Japan's surrender in the war. So if it marks it, it represents it. So this is like if you have a calendar and you circle a day, you are marking that day. Or if you put an X through it, you're marking that day. So maybe if you're keeping track of every day you record yourself speaking and then listen back to it, and then you add the 30th check or circle or X, whatever, you can say this marks the 30th day that I've spoken English in public or that I've recorded a video of myself. Let's review this again. China's parade marks 80 years of Japan's surrender. So Japan surrendered 80 years ago on whatever day Victoria Day was. Japan's surrender in the war and China's victory against an occupying force, which of course represented Japan or Japan's army military. Many Americans died in China's quest for victory and glory. So right here we have quotation marks, so we know that these words are coming out of someone's mouth. So far, the only person talking has been Donald Trump. And since the focus is on Americans, even without seeing that this was Donald Trump, I'm going to assume that based on this information. Many Americans died in China's quest for victory and glory. I hope that they are rightfully honored and remembered for their bravery and sacrifice. So these were the words of Donald Trump. And notice the pronunciation here, honored. What do you notice? Honored. Honored. Well, you may have noticed that this H is not pronounced. This is not a rule in English. This is an exception because H's are pronounced in English. I know in many other languages, the H's are silent, but in English, they are pronounced as a voiceless sound. So it's just, so if you take the word, for example, hotel, if you don't pronounce the H, it becomes hotel, which is different from hotel, otel. So you must pronounce the H, except for the words where there are exceptions. Honored, honor. So you take different forms of the word. Honorable, honor, honored. And another one, although it's not from this word, would be hour. The word honor can be a verb like we have here because it's in the past simple. It can also be a noun like I have in my example sentence. It was an honor. It was an honor. It was an honor to stay at your hotel. Hotel. So practice this sentence. I'll say it once at a natural pace and you can practice it. It was an honor to stay at your hotel. So you can shadow that. Let's keep reading. She was joined at the parade by 26 heads of state. Now notice the quantifier is what gets the plural form. And a head of state, of course, represents one leader. So 26 leaders, 26 heads of state, heads of state, including Putin, viewed by some observers as a message to the Western nations that have shunned them. Okay, so viewed, the fact that there was this parade with 26 heads of state, this situation was viewed by some. So here, the short form is used because it's obvious based on context. But if you turn this into a period, then you would start this with this was viewed. This event, this parade, this situation, this was viewed by some observers as a message to the Western nations that have shunned them. And the them being these 26 heads of state. Let's review the word shun. Shun. This is a verb. Here it's conjugated in it's conjugated in the present perfect. You see it in the participle for shunned with a soft D. Shunned. Shun them. Now, if you shun someone, it could also be a something like a company. You deliberately ignore or avoid. Deliberately means you do it on purpose. So perhaps the community shunned the company when they found out it was using toxic chemicals. So everyone bought their products from this one company in the community, but then they found out it's using toxic chemicals. So now they don't shop there. So that's how you shun a company. You just don't shop there. So it's a very common word. You may hear it in a business context, in the news, and it certainly happens in day-to-day life, especially with kids. Your son or daughter could be shunned. So receive it could be shunned because they wear the wrong shirt to school or something silly. And then other kids ignore and avoid your son or daughter. That's just the life of a child. Let's keep reading. China has sought to position, so to seek to do something. So this is our verb seek. It's an irregular past verb. It's also the participle form. Has sought. So past action with the result in the present. China has sought to position itself. So if you seek to do something, you try to accomplish something. China has sought to position itself as a possible counterweight to the US. So I'm doing this to show what counterweight is. So if something is really heavy, well, then you want to put a counterweight on to make it even again. Now that's in a physical sense. This obviously, they're not talking about putting some rocks on to make it even. Maybe they're talking about policies, beliefs, actions that acts as a counterweight to the US since Trump's tariffs rocked the global economic and political order. Okay, so we have our economy was like this, but then Trump's tariffs caused it to go like this, metaphorically. So now China is going to be the counterweight to have some new policies or actions to try to get things a little more back to the normal distribution. Again, of course, that's a metaphor. Now here, since Trump's tariffs rocked the global economic and political order. Don't get confused because you know if you have subscribed and you've watched my lessons, you know I commonly say you rock as a compliment or that rocks as a compliment. So to rock is a very positive thing. But in this context, it is not a positive thing. If you're in a boat on water, so water and then the boat, someone will say, don't rock the boat. So if you move side to side on the boat, you rock the boat. Well, a boat is not very steady, so the boat could tip and everyone could fall in water. So to rock the boat, what you're doing is you're disturbing the boat. And in this case, that's what the meaning of rock. So the tariffs disturbed the global economic and political order. Again, before the order was like this, but then the tariffs happened and the the order and economic situation went like this. Again, metaphorically. So it was rocked, disturbed in this context. But again, absolutely, you can say you rock. It's the context that makes it obvious if it's a negative meaning or a positive meaning. Let's keep reading. Trump has pitched his tariffs as essential to protecting American interests and industry. So notice here, essential to doing something. So that's why you have this verb in ing, because to belongs to essential. It functions as a preposition. So that's why you have this verb in ing. And here, the verb pitch, if you pitch something, so you pitch an idea. Originally, this was just an idea in Trump's head. What if we introduce massive tariffs? That was an idea, right? Now, if you pitch an idea, it means you share your idea in a way to convince other people. So you don't just share an idea to get feedback. Oh, what do you think? Is that a good idea? A bad idea? You try to sell someone on your idea. You try to convince them that your idea is good. So that's pitch an idea. Now, this represents an idea. It appears that any diplomatic cost is something he is willing to pay. So using it appears, this is when you say a situation seems to be true, but I don't know 100%. So if you say it appears it's going to rain, you see dark clouds, but you don't know 100% that it's going to rain. So the situation is he's willing to pay any diplomatic cost. So a diplomatic cost would be tension between a person or a country. That's the cost. So the cost is negative. So tension, cooling of relations. We saw warming of relations, cooling of relations, higher cost of goods in the US because of the tariffs as well. He's willing to pay those costs. So this represents the downsides, the negatives of his tariffs. And it appears, we don't know this for sure, but based on his actions, we can assume this. Just like you can assume it's going to rain if you see really dark clouds. Let's keep going. When asked by the BBC if he believed, so he represents Donald Trump, and you always assume that it's the last person identified if they use the pronoun. When asked by the BBC if he believed Beijing and its allies were attempting to form an international coalition to oppose the US, Trump said, "No, not at all. China needs us." Now notice here they used the word attempt, which is another way of saying we're trying to form. You could also use the word that we learned before, which is we're conspiring. So remember, conspire is the verb, attempt is the verb, but then here it's conjugated in the past continuous. Its allies were conspiring because it was during the parade, which took place in the past, and it shows the continuous action of that event in the past. We're attempting to form an international coalition. We're conspiring, and then you can use the infinitive as well. We're conspiring to form an international coalition to oppose the US. Trump said, "No, not at all. China needs us." So this "not at all" is a great way to make your no stronger. So if someone asks you, do you have a lot of work to do today? No, not at all. So it's intensifying the lack of work you have to do. Or if someone asks you, was this lesson boring? Hopefully you reply back and say, no, not at all. It wasn't boring at all. So that's how you would say it in a full sentence. It wasn't boring at all. But if someone said, was it boring? Boring is already known. You don't have to repeat that word. No, not at all. No, not at all. So this is a great thing. You can just say not at all. Was the lesson boring? Not at all. I feel like saying no, not at all is a stronger way than just saying not at all. And it's definitely a stronger way than just saying no. So you can add this to your vocabulary. I think it's a very useful phrase. And on those strong words, that's the end of the lesson. So what I'll do now is I'll read the article from start to finish, and you can focus on my pronunciation. Trump accuses Xi of conspiring against U.S. with Putin. U.S. President Donald Trump has accused Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping of conspiring against the U.S. with Russian leader Vladimir Putin. Trump's comments came as China hosted world leaders at his largest ever Victoria Day parade in Beijing on Wednesday, a showcase of China's military might. In a post on Truth Social, Trump wrote, "Please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin as you conspire against the United States of America." Trump previously rejected suggestions that the warming of relations between China, Russia, and other nations poses a challenge to the U.S. on the global stage. On social media, the U.S. president also mentioned the massive amount of support and blood the U.S. gave China during World War II. China's parade marks 80 years of Japan's surrender in the war and China's victory against an occupying force. Many Americans died in China's quest for victory and glory. I hope that they are rightfully honored and remembered for their bravery and sacrifice. Xi was joined at the parade by 26 heads of state, including Putin, viewed by some observers as a message to the Western nations that have shunned them. China has sought to position itself as a possible counterweight to the U.S. since Trump's attacks rocked the global economic and political order. Trump has pitched his tariffs as essential to protecting American interests and industry. It appears that any diplomatic cost is something he is willing to pay. When asked by the BBC if he believed Beijing and its allies were attempting to form an international coalition to oppose the U.S., Trump said, "No, not at all. China needs us."
Do you want to keep learning English with the news? If you do, put let's go in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And here's another lesson I know you'll love. Watch it now.